The world rewards power, not purity. You can work hard, play fair, and still lose to someone who doesn't. No matter how kind you are, someone will still envy you. No matter how capable you become, someone less skilled will still find a way to challenge you. That's not failure. That's the natural order of human ambition. Every environment is a silent arena, and every person inside it is competing for influence, validation, or control. You don't need to announce that you're playing the game to be part of it. You already are. The only choice you have is whether you play it consciously or unconsciously. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He saw that people often mistake power for cruelty, but real power doesn't need to harm anyone. It doesn't need to destroy. It doesn't even need to demand. Power, in its most refined form, moves like water. Quiet, flexible, impossible to contain. It shapes the environment without appearing to fight it. Most people chase dominance. The wise learn direction. True strength doesn't battle for control. It guides control. It bends the flow of things toward its own design. But here's the secret most never learn. You don't have to crush people to rise above them. You don't need to make enemies to gain respect. In fact, the moment you create an enemy, you've already lost a piece of your stability. You've created someone who's now emotionally invested in your failure. Machiavelli's real genius wasn't about manipulation or fear. It was about perception. He understood that perception is reality. And if you can control how others see you, you can shape how they behave around you. That's why the most powerful people often appear the most peaceful. They smile while the world burns around them because they've learned the art of quiet direction. They know that control doesn't come from confrontation. It comes from subtle calibration, guiding situations, influencing emotions, setting the tone before anyone else even realizes there's a tone to set. This is the unseen art of influence. Quiet, strategic, untouchable. And before we begin, understand this clearly. This isn't about manipulation. It's about defense. It's about surviving in a world driven by ego, envy, and endless perception battles. It's about protecting your goals from the chaos of other people's insecurities. If you don't understand how power moves, you'll always be moved by it. If you don't know how influence works, you'll always fall under someone else's. Today, you'll learn what Machiavelli never said outright, but always implied. The 10 subtle tricks that allow you to gain power without being feared, to lead without being hated, to rise without leaving a trail of enemies behind you. Each of these principles is psychological armor. Quiet, invisible, and impossible to counter once you understand how it works. Because the truth is, the world doesn't punish power. It punishes those who show it too openly. Trick 1. Guided humility. People don't fight what they think they already control. It's one of those uncomfortable truths that almost everyone ignores. When someone feels dominant, they stop resisting. When they feel inferior, they fight. And most people spend their entire lives reacting to other people's egos without ever realizing how to manage their own. Machiavelli's first rule, the cornerstone of quiet influence, is deceptively simple. Never appear above others, even when you are. Let them feel the illusion of control. Let them believe they are steering the course while you are subtly adjusting the rudder behind the scenes. Humility, in this sense, isn't weakness. It isn't submission. It is camouflage. It is armor forged not in confrontation, but in perception. The key is not pretending to be less capable. It's allowing others to feel capable in your presence. When you do this, they stop guarding against you. They stop questioning you, stop challenging you, and stop wondering if you're a threat. You give their ego breathing room, and in return, you gain influence. People instinctively protect what they think they lead. If they see you as a threat, they will circle, fight, undermine, or sabotage. if they see you as a partner, a supporter, a mirror of their own success. They will follow willingly and even defend you when others question your authority. Guided humility is subtle, but it's lethal in its effectiveness. It's about praising others where it counts, about letting them take credit publicly, while you quietly guide decisions privately. It's about allowing their confidence to flourish, because the more inflated their sense of control, the less inclined they are to challenge yours. You're not bending to them. You're bending the space around them to your advantage. You are both visible and invisible at the same time, present in action, absent in ego. And this is why humility is not a sign of weakness. It is strategic camouflage. The world is filled with people who mistake boldness for strength, loudness for influence. The truly powerful know the opposite. They appear modest, deferential, even secondary at times, while quietly steering outcomes with precision. They let others feel in charge, and in doing so, they ensure that no one ever feels the need to fight them. They move like shadows in the room, unseen but undeniably present, guiding the game while everyone else believes they are playing it themselves. This is the first step toward gaining power without creating enemies. Let others feel superior while you quietly control the game. Humility, when applied strategically, becomes the softest yet most unbreakable form of influence. Trick 2. Calculated mystery. The world is full of people who believe transparency is honesty, and honesty is safety. They spill their intentions, explain their reasoning, and reveal their plans without ever realizing how exposed they've made themselves. The more you explain yourself, the easier you are to dismantle. Every detail you give becomes a thread someone else can pull. Every secret you reveal becomes a lever for manipulation. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He recognized that mystery is not deceit. Mystery is influence. It is the power of letting others see fragments of your plan, pieces of the puzzle, and then letting their imagination fill the gaps. When people only see parts of you, your goals, your skills, your motivations, they create the rest themselves. And human imagination is never neutral. It embellishes, it idealizes, it speculates, and most importantly, it respects what it cannot fully comprehend. By being selectively opaque, you turn curiosity into respect. You become more fascinating, more memorable, more influential, not because of what you say, but because of what you don't say. It's not lying. It's strategic communication. It's holding just enough information to shape perception while leaving others hungry for more. Calculated mystery is subtle, but it demands precision. Timing is everything. A single fact revealed too early can trigger envy, suspicion, or resistance. A single word held back until the moment it's most needed can create influence beyond measure. It's not about playing games with people's minds. It's about preserving your own power while the world reacts. Every time you reveal less than expected, you shift the dynamic. People stop predicting you. They start paying attention. They stop challenging and start listening. Mystery also transforms ordinary conversations into instruments of influence. When someone asks a question, resist the urge to answer fully. Give enough to acknowledge, but never enough to satisfy curiosity completely. Redirect, hint, or pause. Let silence do the heavy lifting. When people are left guessing, they are simultaneously analyzing you, questioning themselves, and projecting their desires onto you. That energy, which they waste on speculation, quietly strengthens your position. Be known, but never fully understood. Let people feel like they are glimpsing your truth, never stepping inside it completely. Let them wonder, let them imagine, let them theorize. That is how influence spreads silently, imperceptibly, and indestructibly. Mystery isn't a wall, it's a lens. It focuses attention on you, magnifies perception, and converts curiosity into authority. Those who master this principle move through the world like water, flowing into every space, shaping every situation, while leaving the world convinced they were never guided at all. Calculated mystery is the art of influence through absence, the quiet power of selective revelation. It is subtle, patient, and entirely invisible, the way real power operates when no one is watching, and everyone is imagining what they cannot see. Trick 3. The mirror effect. People are wired to trust reflections of themselves. It's one of the most overlooked principles in human behavior, yet it is one of the most powerful tools of influence. When someone looks at you and sees their own values, their own logic, their own priorities reflected back, their defenses drop without them even realizing it. They stop questioning you, stop opposing you, stop feeling the need to compete. They start listening. They start absorbing. They start following, not because you demanded it, but because they feel understood. The mirror effect is not about imitation. It's not about copying someone's gestures, their tone, or their opinions in a superficial way. That would be transparent, and people can sense superficial mimicry immediately. The mirror effect is about resonance, matching their energy, aligning with their rhythm, reflecting the essence of how they think and feel. When done well, it makes people feel safe in your presence. It makes them believe that you are an ally, someone who understands them, someone who is on their wavelength. And when people feel safe and understood, they rarely see you as a threat. Influence through mirroring begins with listening. Listening not just to words, but to emphasis, to emotion, to intention. Observe the way someone frames their ideas, the stories they tell, the values they praise. Then, subtly reflect that energy back, in tone, in phrasing, in the weight you give to their priorities. Not slavishly, not obviously, but in a way that makes them think, almost unconsciously, that you are aligned with them. And alignment, even when partial, dissolves resistance. It transforms confrontation into collaboration. The beauty of the mirror effect is in its subtlety. You don't need to agree with everything, and you don't need to reveal your own agenda. You simply become a reflection, enough to lower their guard, enough to earn trust, enough to let your influence flow. People are far more pliable when they feel seen than when they feel threatened, and the mirror effect is a way of being seen without ever showing weakness. The principle is deceptively simple. People cannot fight what feels familiar. You do not need to dominate a conversation to control it. You do not need to impress to lead. By reflecting them, you allow them to believe they are in charge of the dialogue, of the relationship, of the outcome, while quietly, invisibly, you are guiding them. Influence is not loud. Influence is resonance. And the mirror effect is the bridge between presence and control, between observation and mastery. This is why the most skilled strategists appear effortless in relationships. They do not push. They do not coerce. They do not fight. They reflect. They resonate. And in that quiet, invisible alignment, power flows naturally. The world thinks they are following their own path. But in truth, every step has been subtly shaped by someone who understands the hidden currents of human behavior. Trick 4. The soft obligation. Power is rarely seized. It is given, quietly, subtly, without ceremony, through the invisible threads of gratitude and obligation. Most people misunderstand this. They think favors are kindness, and kindness is weakness. Machiavelli saw it differently. A well-timed favor, small enough to be unnoticed yet meaningful enough to matter, creates loyalty that is both invisible and indestructible. People protect those who have once helped them. They defend them without being asked. They anticipate their needs, sometimes before the person even realizes there is a need. And this is the essence of what I call the soft obligation. The soft obligation is not about showing off generosity. It is not about making debts public or expecting repayment. That destroys the magic. True influence comes from unseen, unspoken gratitude. When you help someone in a way that feels natural to them, they internalize it as part of their own narrative. They believe they were fortunate, that fortune itself brought you together, that they are the beneficiaries of their own luck. And yet, that luck is your design. That invisible thread ties them to you without coercion, without awareness, without fear. Timing is everything. A favor given too early is ignored. A favor given too late is wasted. The soft obligation is about precision, delivering help at the exact moment it has the maximum psychological impact. It's about giving when it can be noticed internally, but not externally. That way, no one ever resents you. No one feels indebted in a way that triggers envy. Instead, they simply carry the sense that you are a figure who has enhanced their life, even slightly, even subtly, and in return, they are naturally inclined to support you. And the beauty of this method is that it works quietly, without announcement. No speeches, no grand gestures, no declaration of intentions. Just small, carefully chosen actions that accumulate into influence over time. The world is filled with people who demand loyalty and fight for it. You, by contrast, cultivate it silently. You create a network of invisible defenders. People who, without thinking, will protect your interests as if they were their own. Kindness, when applied strategically, becomes currency. Not the loud, performative kind that seeks admiration or applause. The kind that moves beneath the surface, that accumulates silently, and that converts ordinary relationships into structures of subtle power. When you master the soft obligation, you no longer need to demand attention or enforce control. You simply position yourself as someone indispensable, someone whose presence is quietly yet powerfully acknowledged. Someone whose influence is accepted as natural. The soft obligation is a lesson in restraint, in subtlety, and in patience. It teaches that power is often less about direct action and more about creating invisible alliances that act without needing instruction. It is the art of influence disguised as generosity, the power that grows quietly while others fight loudly, and the principle that allows you to rise without ever provoking resistance. Trick 5. Strategic agreement. Power is not won in arguments. It is not claimed through force or through proving others wrong. It is earned when others believe that your goals align with theirs, when they feel that by supporting you, they are advancing themselves. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He saw that people are rarely persuaded by logic alone. They are motivated by self-interest, by the belief that their own position will improve if they cooperate. Strategic agreement is the art of framing your ambitions so that they appear to serve the interests of others. And in doing so, it dissolves resistance before it even appears. The essence of strategic agreement is subtlety. You do not compromise your goals, but you present them in a way that resonates with the priorities of those around you. Your ideas should feel familiar, like they were already part of the collective plan. When people believe that your rise benefits them, they stop seeing you as a competitor. They begin to see you as a partner, and this perception is stronger than any argument or demonstration of competence. When someone's self-interest is satisfied, their defenses drop naturally. They will support, defend, and even advocate for you without being asked. This principle works in every arena, in the boardroom, in social circles, in personal relationships. It's about understanding what motivates people at a deeper level. It's about asking yourself not, how do I prove I am right? But, how do I achieve the outcome I want while making others feel they have achieved theirs as well? When you shift the focus from ego to alignment, you transform confrontation into collaboration, competition into partnership. The most powerful people are not those who fight to dominate the conversation, but those who shape it so that others speak the words you wanted said all along, believing it was their idea. Strategic agreement also requires patience and observation. You must listen carefully, understand what matters most to each person, and then frame your proposals in a way that mirrors their priorities. You must speak with sincerity, because people can detect manipulation from a mile away, and any hint of coercion will destroy influence instantly. The goal is not to trick anyone. The goal is to align invisible threads of interest so that your objectives and theirs converge. That convergence is where influence thrives. When you master strategic agreement, you no longer need to assert dominance. You no longer need to win arguments or force compliance. Instead, you create an environment where people willingly support your plans because it feels like their own victory. And in doing so, you remove conflict before it even exists. Resistance is replaced by cooperation. Rivalry is replaced by alliance. Strategic agreement is the principle that allows you to achieve power gracefully, quietly, and sustainably, all without making enemies. Trick 6. Controlled contradiction. Predictability is the silent enemy of power. When people can fully define you, when they can anticipate every reaction and predict every decision, they gain leverage over you without even realizing it. Machiavelli knew that the strongest leaders are never fully predictable. They cultivate controlled contradiction, the art of being balanced yet elusive, consistent yet surprising, approachable yet untouchable. It is not about being deceptive for the sake of deception. It is about maintaining a presence that commands respect while remaining impossible to fully map. People respect what they cannot fully understand, and they fear what they cannot predict. Controlled contradiction is subtle and deliberate. You are kind, but not soft, firm, but not cruel, generous, but not exploitable. You establish rules for your behavior that are unshakable, yet you apply them with a flexibility that others cannot fully anticipate. You want people to respect your boundaries, but you also want them to wonder where those boundaries end. This tension keeps others cautious, careful, and attentive. It makes you unassailable without ever raising a sword. Your unpredictability, within the framework of consistency, becomes a shield. The power of controlled contradiction lies in its psychological impact. When others cannot predict your reactions, they hesitate before challenging you. Their thoughts and actions are filtered through your presence, constrained by uncertainty, and subtly guided without coercion. They begin to adapt to you rather than you adapting to them. In essence, you control the game simply by existing within it as a figure they cannot fully grasp. And that control is far more durable than force because it relies not on compliance, but on perception. Controlled contradiction also protects your influence from erosion. People constantly test boundaries, probe for weakness, and look for inconsistencies. By mastering the art of balanced contradiction, you ensure that tests are met with calculated responses, sometimes warmth, sometimes firmness, always deliberate. You never allow others to fully anticipate your next move, but you never allow your unpredictability to appear chaotic. There is always intention, always purpose, always control. This principle is not easy. It requires acute self-awareness and discipline. It demands that you manage how others perceive you while maintaining your own internal clarity. But when mastered, controlled contradiction allows you to navigate social and professional landscapes without creating enemies. It makes you untouchable, not through intimidation, but through the subtle, almost invisible authority of a person whose presence cannot be fully read or challenged. It is a principle that converts uncertainty into power and caution into influence. Trick 7. The mask of benevolence. Reputation is the invisible armor that protects power even when you are absent. Machiavelli understood that people do not act against those they admire, and they forgive the missteps of those they believe are good. The mask of benevolence is not about pretending to be virtuous. It is about cultivating a perception that encourages trust, loyalty, and respect. It is the art of moving through the world in a way that appears generous, composed, and fair, while your strategy unfolds quietly beneath the surface. Those who master this principle command influence without confrontation, respect without demand, and authority without overt assertion. The mask of benevolence works because people project onto it the qualities they hope leaders possess. They interpret calmness as wisdom, generosity as integrity, and composure as moral strength. And they act accordingly. Your reputation becomes a shield. It protects you from scrutiny, deflects potential criticism, and ensures that your calculated actions are rarely questioned. Power without reputation is fragile, exposed to the whims and resentments of those around you. Power with reputation, however, is enduring. It allows you to move through social and professional arenas with confidence, knowing that the narrative surrounding you already works in your favor. Benevolence also serves as a preventive measure against conflict. When people perceive you as fair and upright, they are less likely to challenge you openly. They may still act competitively, but the energy they expend is constrained by the respect your perceived character demands. You do not need to assert dominance. You simply need to embody reliability, generosity, and calm authority. Even your silence, when filtered through the lens of benevolence, becomes interpreted as wisdom rather than aloofness, strategy rather than malice. Maintaining this mask requires intentionality. Every interaction, every gesture, every word is an opportunity to reinforce perception. Public praise, quiet support, visible fairness. These are not performances, but strategic investments in social capital. People remember and interpret these gestures more powerfully than overt displays of strength or confrontation. By consistently aligning your actions with a benevolent image, you ensure that your influence is not fragile, and that your assent creates admiration rather than resentment. Ultimately, the mask of benevolence allows you to wield influence invisibly. It ensures that you are respected even when unseen, trusted even when your decisions remain private, and protected even when circumstances are unpredictable. Benevolence becomes more than a reputation. It becomes a force multiplier for your power, creating allies where there might have been challengers, and providing the subtle authority necessary to rise without making enemies. It is the armor of perception, the silent endorsement of those around you, and a cornerstone of the art of influence. Trick 8. The economy of information. Every word you speak, every piece of knowledge you share, becomes a tool. Once it leaves your lips, it can be twisted, weaponized, or used against you. Machiavelli understood that information is not just a resource, it is currency. And like currency, it must be spent wisely. Speaking too much, revealing too early, explaining too fully, these are the mistakes of the inexperienced. They hand away power without realizing it. The economy of information is the principle of restraint, of precision, and of deliberate scarcity. It is the art of controlling perception through what is withheld, not only through what is said. Silence is not emptiness. It is leverage. A single carefully chosen fact revealed at the right moment can alter the trajectory of an entire negotiation, conversation, or relationship. The same fact revealed too soon, too casually, or without context can invite envy, resistance, or undercut your authority. Those who master this principle do not feel compelled to explain themselves fully. They allow others to fill in the gaps, to speculate, to wonder, and in that speculation, influence grows. People attribute competence, wisdom, and power to what they cannot see. They respect what they cannot fully understand. The economy of information also teaches timing and selectivity. Not everyone needs to know everything about you. Friends, colleagues, rivals, and allies all require different levels of disclosure. Your closest allies may need insight into your strategy. Your casual acquaintances should see only fragments, and your competitors should remain in partial darkness. Every interaction becomes a decision. How much to reveal, when to reveal it, and to whom. This creates control, not through confrontation, but through the subtle calibration of knowledge. Equally important is the psychological impact of scarcity. People pay attention when words are rare, when actions are measured, when insight is earned rather than handed out freely. When you speak selectively, your voice carries weight. Every revelation becomes meaningful. Every statement is scrutinized, remembered, and absorbed. By contrast, those who speak constantly dilute their influence. Their authority is lost in the noise of their own overexposure. The economy of information is not deception, it is prudence. It is the understanding that knowledge is power, and power must be preserved, deployed, and protected. When you master this, you control not just what others know, but how they perceive you, how they respond to you, and how they align their actions with your interests, all without confrontation, all without hostility. The world believes influence is action. Machiavelli knew influence is restraint. And the person who speaks least often, but with intent, wields authority far beyond the reach of those who never learned the value of silence. Trick 9. The art of unthreatening power. Few things in the world provoke fear more than the success of others. When someone rises too quickly, shines too brightly, or demonstrates ability too openly, jealousy awakens. Competition surfaces, resentment festers, and enemies are made, sometimes without a single word being spoken. Machiavelli recognized this danger and taught that the most effective form of influence is power that does not appear threatening. True authority does not intimidate. It is unthreatening by design. It is the kind of presence that draws cooperation, admiration, and loyalty, rather than opposition. Unthreatening power is not about hiding your achievements or diminishing your value. It is about framing your success in ways that make others feel included rather than eclipsed. Publicly share credit. Highlight contributions from others. Allow allies and colleagues to see themselves reflected in your victories. When people feel that they rise as you rise, they become protective of your influence instead of envious of it. What seems like humility to them is, in reality, strategic positioning. The creation of a social ecosystem where opposition cannot easily form, because everyone believes they have something to gain from your continued success. This principle extends beyond workplaces and boards. It governs every sphere of influence. When your accomplishments are seen as collaborative rather than competitive, resistance diminishes. People no longer focus on undermining you. They start anticipating your needs, defending your position, and subtly reinforcing your trajectory without ever being asked. You are no longer merely moving through the world. The world is moving around you, adapting to your presence in ways that seem natural, organic, and uncontested. Unthreatening power requires acute social awareness. You must understand the insecurities, aspirations, and egos of those around you. You must allow their perception of your rise to feel like their own opportunity, their own win, their own growth. And in doing so, you avoid provoking resentment while quietly solidifying influence. This is not manipulation in its cruelest sense. It is strategic alignment. You create networks of cooperation where opposition might have existed. You transform potential enemies into invisible allies. The art of unthreatening power also demands discipline. Never boast, never dominate conversations unnecessarily, never flaunt your superiority. Power is revealed in restraint, not spectacle. The quiet achiever often commands the most loyalty. The subtle leader often controls the largest following. By allowing others to feel they are participants in your ascent, rather than victims of your dominance, you eliminate friction, build goodwill, and ensure that your influence grows without opposition. In this way, the most powerful person in any room is rarely the loudest, the flashiest, or the most overtly capable. It is the one whose power feels inevitable, natural, and unthreatening, even to those who might otherwise resent it. Trick 10. Outcome obsession. Power is not about winning arguments. It is not about proving a point, asserting dominance, or satisfying pride. Most people spend their lives reacting emotionally, defending their ideas, or trying to convince others of their superiority. And in doing so, they exhaust energy, squander opportunities, and make enemies unnecessarily. Machiavelli understood a far simpler and more effective principle: focus on the outcome. The only metric that truly matters is results. What did you achieve? Did the situation move in your favor? Were your objectives met? These are the questions that separate the strategically powerful from the endlessly reactive. Outcome obsession requires a shift in perspective. You stop asking, "Am I right?" or "Do I look competent?" and start asking, "What do I actually want to accomplish?" Once the goal is clear, every action, every word, every decision becomes aligned with that objective. You no longer waste time on fruitless debates, on ego battles, or on symbolic victories. You do not expend energy proving yourself. You expend energy achieving. And the difference is monumental. People who focus on outcomes are always ahead. They are calm in conflict because they know that appearances and pride are irrelevant. Only results matter. This approach changes how you interact with others. In disagreements, you no longer argue to win. You strategize to achieve. Sometimes achieving requires compromise, sometimes patience, sometimes guiding someone to reach the conclusion you want on their own. People resist less when they feel they are participating in the solution rather than being forced into it. Outcome obsession turns interactions into tools rather than trials, making influence seamless and frictionless. It eliminates unnecessary conflict and, in the process, reduces the creation of enemies. Outcome obsession also fosters adaptability. Those who focus on methods or attachment to ego become rigid. They stick to plans even when evidence shows they are failing. Outcome-obsessed people cling only to objectives, not strategies. If one approach fails, they adjust. If circumstances change, they pivot. Their focus is relentless, their priorities clear, and their influence grows because they are always moving toward what matters, while others are trapped in arguments, appearances, or the illusions of control. Finally, outcome obsession amplifies every other principle of influence: guided humility, calculated mystery, the mirror effect, soft obligation, strategic agreement, controlled contradiction, the mask of benevolence, the economy of information, and unthreatening power all function far more effectively when aligned with clear outcomes. Power without results is hollow. Strategy without achievement is impotent. The outcome-obsessed person does not need to be feared or adored. They are respected because they consistently deliver, quietly and decisively, while leaving others believing they chose to follow. The strongest leaders do not create enemies. They create believers. They rise quietly, methodically, in ways that feel inevitable to everyone around them. People follow them not out of fear, not out of coercion, but because they believe in the vision, because they see themselves reflected in the path, because they sense that resistance is unnecessary and even counterproductive. Machiavelli's greatest insight was never about domination. It was about direction. Power is not the act of crushing others. It is the art of guiding them, shaping perception, influencing choice, and orchestrating outcomes so seamlessly that the world moves as if by its own accord, while you are the unseen hand behind the flow. To rise silently, you must control perception. Every gesture, every word, every pause matters. Influence is built in the cracks between action and observation, in the spaces where others think they are making decisions freely, while in reality their choices align with yours. You do not push, you do not demand. You shape the environment so subtly that people believe their decisions, their compliance, and even their admiration are their own. This is the power of invisible authority. It is quiet, deliberate, and unassailable. Power is not about fear. Fear is fragile, temporary, and corrosive. Fear can motivate people to act, but it also motivates them to resist, to conspire, to undermine. True power, the kind that lasts, is precise. It is cultivated through strategy, observation, patience, and psychological mastery. It does not create enemies because it does not threaten unnecessarily. It does not announce itself because it does not need to. The most effective influence is the kind that operates beneath the surface, unnoticed until it has already shaped outcomes. The principles you have learned, guided humility, calculated mystery, the mirror effect, soft obligation, strategic agreement, controlled contradiction, the mask of benevolence, the economy of information, unthreatening power, and outcome obsession, are not just tactics. They are a framework for navigating the world with quiet dominance, for rising without creating conflict, for achieving results without forcing compliance. When applied correctly, they allow you to wield authority invisibly, to command respect without confrontation, and to gain influence without leaving resentment in your wake. So stay calm, stay unreadable, stay strategic. Move through the world like a shadow that guides light, like a current that shapes the shore without anyone realizing the force that moved it there. The most powerful person in any room is not the loudest, the most aggressive, or the most visible. The most powerful person is the one who does not need to be feared to be followed, whose presence is felt quietly, whose influence spreads silently, and whose rise is unchallenged because it is aligned, deliberate, and inevitable. This is the silent rise. This is the mastery of influence without enemies. This is the kind of power that survives, endures, and shapes the world in ways that brute force never could.